Okay, so we're calling this the good, the bad, and the wish I would have known. So again, hopefully this will be about 30 minutes and it'll cover a lot of just main points about patents. And I put my contact information here on the first slide, and I'll have another slide at the end with my contact information. If you have any questions that you don't get answered, or if you want to follow up with any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you at a later date. So as an outline, we're gonna first try to help you understand really what is a patent, and what rights does it confer, and I have some analogies I can go through to explain that. Then I also want to hit on what are the different types of filing status categories and what are the fees. That's a big question I get a lot. What are the different types of patents? We'll kind of cover those in a little bit of detail, and then talk about when you might want to file, where to file, and why you want to file. And I probably won't talk about agreements, but we'll see how far we can get in a short period of time here. So this is the new cover of an issued patent. They changed the cover, I think, about 2 years ago. And so this is really the goal for the clients that I work with. It's to get an issued patent, but not all patents are equal. Some patents, probably are more narrow, or are not as well written as others. So hopefully I'll kind of explain that as well as we go through the application or through the presentation. So what is a patent? It is one form of intellectual property. So intellectual property is the broad categorical description for the set of intangibles owned and legally protected by an owner from outside use or implementation without consent. So really what that means is it's kind of ideas, non-tangible things that you can protect. So other types of intellectual property are trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, ideas in general, and patents. But we're just going to talk about patents tonight. If you do have some trademark questions at the end, I can try to address those, but I'm not a trademark attorney. So a patent is a government-approved 20-year right to exclude others from making, using, selling, or importing the claimed invention in exchange for providing the public with a full disclosure of how to practice the invention. So it's a trade-off. You explain what your invention is, you write it all down, you submit it, and if you get it issued, then you basically can exclude others from making, using, or selling that for a limited amount of time. But then after your patent expires, anybody can practice that invention. So patents in the long haul really promote technology for everybody. And that was really the intent. So patent does not give you the right to make, use, or sell the article. And that's a big kind of misconception. People always say, am I protected by having a patent? And so I'll try to explain how that really isn't the right way to think about it. So a patent is like a property deed. A patent is intellectual property, and I like to use this metaphor to kind of explain, what really a patent is. This is a property deed. It shows a map with the property drawn out, and it shows the boundaries of the property. And then if you can see this more closely, it explains beginning at the southwesterly end of the 25-foot radius junction curve, joining them. So it's really weird language explaining these boundary, and claim language is very similar to this. And so if you look at a patent application, it's very similar to a property deed. It has a figure showing what your property is, what your invention is, and it has a description of the property. And then at the end of the patent, there are claims, and the claims are the specific language and statements about what you feel your rights or your invention is, and what rights you want to, or you can assert against somebody else for infringement. So this one says a mousetrap comprising a base, a striking bar, a spring means urging said striking bar into engagement, blah, blah, blah. So again, the language here is kind of as similarly complicated as the language for the property deed. So if a patent is property and the claims describe the boundaries of and size of the property that you're going to have, what kind of property do you want? And what kind of claims do you want to describe? You probably want to have claims that describe as much property as possible, kind of like the Great Wall of China here. There are some patents, however, that are written so narrow that it only claims a very small boundary, like this small dog fence here. And those patents are probably not worth a whole lot because it's such a small little piece of space, and who's going to infringe on that? So that's something you have to think about. Also, there is a big difference between the quality of patents. There are patents that are written that are easy to overcome. And so you want to think about, really, when you get down to the claims and what you're claiming at the end of the patent, you want them well written, and you want your patent application as a whole written well, so it'll stand up. Again, using this analogy of property, we can kind of look at a couple of scenarios here. Joe, he's invented widget A, and his claims describe this boundary, looks like Australia. And then you have Sue, and she has a separate invention. She invented widget B, and it has a claims that describe a separate property, and they're totally separate from each other, so there's no issue. But then Sue has an idea for a new widget, and it's an improvement of Joe's widget. So she has to take Joe's widget and add some new features to it. And so she files this patent that looks like Maryland is the claim boundary. And she can file and get a patent issued for this improvement. So these widget A and widget B don't infringe, but widget C is an improvement of widget A and is therefore dominated by widget A. So if Sue wanted to go over here onto her land, which looks like Maryland, she would have to cross Joe's boundary. And so therefore she would have to get a license from Joe to practice her invention. So getting a patent doesn't mean you can make your own article. That's kind of explains that. And you have to look at that on a case by case, on a claim by claim basis, I should say. Some of the claims in her patent may overlap and include the features of Joe's widget A, and some might not. So it's not really looking at it as a whole. You have to look at it on a claim by claim basis. So when people say they're infringing my patent, that's also kind of incorrect. You should say they're infringing claims 1, 5, and 7 of my patent, because you have to look at it on a claim by claim basis. And again, a patent is a proactive tool. It's a tool that enables you to assert your patent against somebody for infringing. So you can say, hey, stop making my product that I have a patent on. It doesn't really protect you. It's a proactive tool. So this is why it's really important before you write a patent or have somebody write a patent that they do a patent prior art search, because when you do a patent prior art search, you're looking for all these things that are similar in the public domain. So these might be patent disclosures, and again, I'm using properties or states here to represent these different things that are claimed, but there's a space you can see here called the white space. And this is where there may be room for you to get a new claim for your invention. And that's how you want to understand this before you write the patent, so you can write it to include that white space. Okay, so there are 3 different filing status categories at the patent office. Most individual inventors are going to qualify for what's called microentity, and that is a relatively new category, and it reduces the fees by 1/4 from that of the undiscounted fees. And to qualify for microentity, you have to first be a small entity, which means less than 500 employees if you're a business. And you cannot have filed more than 4 non-provisionals before filing this patent that you're going to file. So you get a total of 5 filings under the microentity status. And the other requirement is that your gross income has to be less than 3 times the median household income, or your income has to be less than $206,000. And so they would look at your records for 2020 in this case to see if you qualify. And a small entity is typically a business that has less than 500 employees. And then there's undiscounted, the really big companies, they have to pay the highest fees. And here's the fees that for different types of patent applications. So a provisional, which I'm going to explain in a little bit. For a micro entity, it's only $75. For a small, it's $150 and $300 for undiscounted. And then a utility patent, which is a non-provisional, it's $455 for micro entity, $830 for small, and $1820 for undiscounted. And then design patents, you can see the fees there. So you can see the fees are not really that high for filing a patent. The fees typically that are high are to hire a professional to prepare the patent application for you. So patent types. We're going to talk about utility type patent, which includes a provisional and non-provisional. And then I'm going to get into some of these different ways you can file a non-provisional. I'm not really going to talk about design patents tonight or a plant patent, but those are different types of patents. So utility is for any new and useful process, machine, manufacturer, composition matter, or any new and useful improvement thereof. And so it's for example, a mousetrap, which I'm using in this throughout the presentation. But you can have different types of claims in a utility patent. You can describe the actual product itself, which is an article claim. It could be describe what the widget is and how it operates. You could have a method claim, how you use the widget. You can have claims to how you make the article or the widget. So there's different ways you can kind of go after claiming your invention. And there's a lot of strategy involved in that as well. So for example, an article claim would say a mousetrap comprising a platform, a latch, a striking bar coupled to said platform and configured to be retained by said latch, blah, blah, blah. So it's describing the physical components of the mousetrap, how they're configured with respect to each other, and how they perform some function. So it's describing really how it operates. So when you think about what claims you're going to file, you need to really consider who's going to be the infringer. So in this case, the infringer would be anybody making, using, or selling, or importing the actual article. So a article claim is a really good type of claim to have because it's easy to show infringement. So another type of claim is a method claim. So a method of disposing a mouse comprising steps of providing a lever type mousetrap comprising, and it would explain all the features that we just described in the article claim. Then you would talk about how you use it, placing the bait on the bait trigger, rotating the striking bar to load the spring, and then having the mouse jostle the bait to release the latch and have the striking bar hit them and kill them. So it's a little bit of an odd type of claim, but who would infringe that claim? So it's a method of using the apparatus. So who would infringe? It would really be the public. And so that's probably, it's a little bit of an odd type of claim for this type of product. And because you don't really want to sue all the people who are buying your product. And there is what's called contributory infringement, which means if somebody's selling a product and they're telling people how to, like you're explaining in this method claim, then you could still go after them for what's called contributory infringement. They don't literally infringe this claim, but they're enticing the public through the sell and disclosure of the product to infringe your claim. And then finally, there might be a process claim, a process of making a mousetrap comprising the steps of providing a rectangular platform, attaching a spring to the lever and lever to said platform. So it's talking about actually, how you make the device. And these claims can be good for certain types of products, but most times I'm typically writing article or method claims for people. So who would infringe this? Somebody who's making and using these process steps to make the invention. So it would be the competitors that were making it. But it could be a little bit more difficult to prove infringement because they might make it a little bit different way. So again, this is really the strongest claim in most cases is an article claim. All right, getting into filing types of patents, there's a provisional, which a lot of people have heard about. Often terms are referred to as a PPA application. So it allows filing without a formal patent claim, oath, or declaration, or any information disclosure prior statement. It's not examined by the USPTO. So there's not a whole lot of formality requirements with a provisional. And so some people do file these on their own, but it's certainly a lot different than a non-provisional. So filing a provisional patent application does establish patent pending status, and it starts your what we call priority date. So a priority date is the first date of filing. And so that's a really important date because we're operating under what's called first to file. And so you want to get a very early priority date. So you can do that by filing a provisional. Yeah, that's it. We're in the first file. So that's why you might want to do that quickly. But here's my kind of warning. If you were to file a really small provisional, and I show this one small on this side, and then you work with somebody like me or some other patent agent or attorney to prepare a more legitimate full disclosure type non-provisional a year later, you only get the priority date back to the provisional if the claims in this non-provisional are supported by what you wrote down in your provisional. So you don't want to write a 2-paragraph provisional with one sketch in there and feel comfortable that you've really, given yourself the early priority date for later filed application. So that's the one warning. Don't write down something very sparse and send it in and feel too comfortable, because you really want to make sure you fully disclose the invention. Okay, so why do people file provisional patent applications? A lot of times they're filed because there's going to be some sort of public disclosure and you want to get your patent filed before you publicly disclose it. You might be hiring a company to help you make prototypes or help with design, and you want to just make sure you get something on file before you start disclosing it. And that's a very good reason to do that. You might still be in development. And so this happens with a number of my clients. They're in development and I say, well, I know you're still working on it and you keep telling me about things you're changing on it. It'd probably be better if you filed a provisional, because if you make more changes, we can update and file a new provisional. But if you file a non-provisional, that's set in stone. You cannot make any changes to. Once you file a non-provisional, it's going to get examined by the patent office and you can't change anything there. You can't add new matter to it. And so if you are in development, sometimes it's better to just file a series of provisionals for a year and then file one non-provisional at the end of a year to cover everything. And you might want a license. So a lot of people these days are filing a provisional and then getting out there for a year and see if there's any interest in licensing. It's a pretty low cost way to get something on file and then see if you can find somebody who wants to license it. So if you are going to file a provisional patent application, I would include lots and lots of figures and label all the figures, include a thorough description of the invention, including alternative embodiments of each element, and talk about how you use it, and include at least one claim. But I've had some experiences recently with people who have filed their own non-provisionals, and then I've agreed to try to fix it. It's a huge mess. That's why I have this nuclear bomb going off. I do not recommend that individual inventors try to prepare and file their own non-provisional patent applications. Provisional patent applications are not examined by the patent office. It's a very low bar to get it on file. But when you file a non-provisional patent application, there are tons of rules, and most individual inventors are probably not going to get them all right, and it's going to be a big mess. So yeah, I've had some terrible experiences with people. So yeah, if you filed your own non-provisional and you want me to fix it, I don't take on clients like that anymore. It's a bad situation. Okay, types of patents, non-provisional. We talk about provisionals. Now we'll talk about a non-provisional, which is it's a real patent that the patent office is going to examine. So a non-provisional can claim the benefit of the provisional, as we mentioned, or it could just be the first patent you file in the US. You don't have to do a provisional first. There's no requirement. Or it could be what's called a national stage application from a PCT. or it could claim, so this is a PCT, which I'll explain. And then, or it could claim the benefit of a foreign patent application. So I file patents for foreign law firms, and they filed in Great Britain or wherever. And then they say, hey, file this non-provisional in the US within a year. So that's another way it can happen. So what is this PCT? Stands for Patent Cooperation Treaty. So it's a PCT is it's a unified procedure for filing patent applications to protect inventions in each of the contracting states of the PCT, which is pretty much all the countries, but I think Taiwan is included. The patent application filed under PCT is called an international application, but there is really no worldwide patent application. So if you want to file a patent, if you want to have a patent in Canada, you have to file a patent in Canada. If you want a patent in Mexico, any country in Europe, you got to file it in those, eventually have it filed and issued in those countries. So there is no worldwide patent. And so the reason they came up with the PCT application is prior to this convention, you'd have to file into foreign countries within 1 year of your first filing. So you'd file your patent in the US, and then within 1 year, you'd have to file everywhere else in the world. It would cost lots and lots of money. And typically there would have been no review of your first US filing within that first year. And so you're basically shooting in the dark. You've had no review and you're spending tons of money. So they said, that's not good. So they said, how about we come up with this PCT application, will allow you to file in your home country. And then within 1 year, instead of filing everywhere else in the world, you can file a PCT, and then we'll give you a total of 30 months to then decide where you want to file in the rest of the world. And so usually within 30 months, you're going to get some review of your patent in your home country, and then you can make an educated decision. They also said, well, when you file PCT, we'll go ahead and we'll do a review of it. We'll do an international search, and we'll write a written opinion on patentability, and we'll get that over to you so you can make an educated decision before you spend all that money filing everywhere else. So that's what a PCT is. So kind of like a holding stamp, if you will, for filing internationally. So it has to be filed within 1 year first filing, gives you 30 months for from priority to file in the countries of interest, and they do that international search that I mentioned. No patents issued from the PCT, however. Again, there's no international worldwide patent. So here's a scenario. You might file a provisional patent application, wait a year, maybe you're doing development or whatever, and then you file a PCT within that first year. You get your international search and written opinion back from the PCT, and then you could, if that comes back what's called favorable, then you could file it into the US within 30 months. And if it comes back favorable, which means they say, hey, we think some of these claims in your PCT are allowable or would be allowable, then you can file a patent prosecution highway petition. That's what PPH stands for. Yeah, and so, and I'll talk about that in just a minute, the PPH application. Okay, there's other, so when you do file non-provisional, you can file it different ways. You can do a non-publication request, you can accelerate it, you can do this PPH I just mentioned, and then there's a divisional continuations, there's continuation of the parts. So I'm going to describe a little bit quickly about these, and then that'll wrap up for tonight, and then we'll get into questions. So non-publication request, if you're only going to file a patent in the US, you can file it, and you can file a non-publication request, which means you don't want it to publish after 18 months, which most patents or every other patent does, but you have to say, I'm not going to file it anywhere else in the world. And you have to make that assertion when you file the application. You can't decide 3 months later after filing, hey, I want to do a non-publication. You have to do it when you file. And why would you want to do this? It gives you control of who knows about your patent application. And it prevents third-party oppositions, because if anybody can present an opposition to your patent application, you know, if they see it published and they don't want your patent to get issued, they can send in all their prior art and reasons why they don't think it should be allowed to the patent office. So that's, if it's not published, they won't know about it. Okay, track 1 examination is a way to accelerate your patent through the patent office. So I use this icon of a race car because that's what it does. Normally, it's going to take about 18 months to 2 years for them to review your patent application under normal processing. But if you file this accelerated examination or track 1 examination request, it's going to cost you a little over $1,000 a microentity, but they're going to look at it really quickly. Usually within 3 to 6 months, you're going to get some sort of review of the patent application. And they do also require there's no more than 30 claims and no more than 4 independent claims. And so if you file a track 1 type patent application within 6 months, probably going to get a review, and you're going to probably get patent determination within a year. So this is another way you might want to file if you're not sure if you want to file internationally. You just go ahead and pay that extra fee, find out if it's patentable in the US, and then decide if you want to do the PCT and go worldwide with it. That's a pretty good option. Again, under regular processing, it's going to take a long time, 18 to 24 months. And those are just general averages that I've seen. Here's my best record ever. This is a patent that was filed, you can see here, on August 14th of 2019. And this is a notice of allowance that was issued, when was it mailed? Oh, date mailed, 10/2/2019. That's 6 weeks from the filing date to get a notice of allowance. But that's really not typical. So that was a really, really quick review of this patent application by the patent office, but that might be the record of all time. These results may not happen all the time. All right, so let's go on to the PPH patent prosecution highway application. Basically what this says, it's a way for patent offices to accelerate patents that have already been reviewed by a member country, or a country that is part of the PPH program. And so all patent examination authorities are very busy. And so they're looking for ways to be able to, I guess, reduce their workload. So basically what it says is if a first country approves it, then you can file this PPH application, and we're going to accelerate through the patent office. And more than likely, it's going to get more favorable review. And so the PCT, that written opinion on patentability, is considered a first filing review. And so you can use that if it comes back favorable to file in the US with the PPH petition. That's kind of complicated, but. So PPH, if allowable claims in a foreign country or in a PCT application, then PPH available option. So that's basically, you can file in the US with the PPH if the PCT says patentable, or if you get a notice of allowance in a foreign country. Yeah, and so there is no fee for acceleration of the application when you file a PPH. You're probably going to get decreased cost of prosecution. It's probably not going to go back and forth with the patent office as much. And there's a higher allowance rates. The USPTO used to have on their website that about 90% of PPH applications are allowed. And the normal allowance rate for all applications is typically around 50%. So that's a huge improvement, or a huge boost in allowability. So just briefly, I'll go over divisional applications. When you file a patent application, you can file it with different types of claims. We talked about article claims, we talked about method claims, and you can have different sets of claims in your patent application. But when you file it that way, they're going to restrict it. They're going to say, well, we're too busy to look at all 3 of these at one time, so pick one and we'll examine it, and then you can file these other ones later as divisional. So you might pick the method claim, they're going to examine it, and then before this patent would be issued, you'd have to file the divisional with the claims to the first article, then they would examine it and hopefully issue it. And then before it issues, again, you got to file any other divisionals that you want to file off of that original claim set. So that's what a divisional is. It's a filing, a subsequent filing from a first filing with claims that were in your first filing that were withdrawn due to a restriction. They're all separate patents. Continuation is really the same thing, So it's a patent that you file and it's about ready to issue, and you say, well, I want to file, there's some other claims or different scope of the claims that I want to file. So you'd file a continuation before it issues, and that's going to get examined. So the claims are not really in the original patent application, but they're supported by the disclosure of the original application. That's what a continuation is. A divisional is exactly the claims. A continuation is just supported by the claims. And then a continuation in part is where you have a first filing, it gets examined, it's about ready to move to issue. And you say, wait a second, I've developed some new things, some new features I want to include in this application. So you can file what's called a continuation in part. You can add that new stuff to the separate application and you can file it. Now the new matter that you've added and the priority date for that new matter, so the claims that are supported by the new stuff that you've added in this continuation part is the date of filing of that continuation part application. So it doesn't go all the way back because you didn't describe those new. So say you added a flux capacitor to your device and you only describe that in your CIP, the claims to this flux capacitor, they go back to this file. Okay, when to file? Really the best advice there is file as soon as you can. We work under first to file rule, which means getting an early priority date is very important. And that changed back in 2013. So just real quickly, under first to invent system, this is the prior rules. If you had an idea and you worked on it and you filed your patent, that's, sets your timeline. Then somebody else comes along, has an idea later, but they file it sooner, then as long as you were diligent working on it, Joe would be the inventor. But under the same exact rules now, or under the first invent rules now, I should say, Sue's going to be the inventor because she filed first. So that's a big change. All right, where to file? You want to file where you want to exclude others from making, using, or selling the claimed invention. So, and it also includes importing. So again, if people are a lot of times are worried about China making products and importing them into US, as soon as it lands on the shores of the US and it's a product that infringes your claim, it's an infringing product. So again, it's a progressive tool. Where are you going to have the ability to assert your patent against other people? That's something you want to think about. Where are they going to be making, using, and selling it? So where are the large markets? Maybe you want to think about your particular product. Maybe if it's a skiing product, maybe it's countries up north here where there's lots of skiing activities, or where you manufacture it. You may want to figure out where the biggest competitors are and file patents in those countries where the large manufacturing competitors are. Okay, why file? It gives you that 20-year right to exclude others from making, using, and selling the invention. So that's pretty nice. Again, it's an assertive tool. If you watch Shark Tank, one of the first questions they ask is, "Oh, do you have a patent on it?" So it really, if you're trying to develop value in your company, patents are going to really help that. I just had a client recently sell a portion of their patent portfolio for a lot of money, and it was very exciting. So that's good. You might want to try to license the patents, and so you can do royalty-free license, royalty-free exclusive rights, or you can do rights with royalties. There's all different ways of doing license contracts. So that might be an option. And these are not controlled by the USPTO, so you can't really tell from anything you can look on a public forum who's licensing what. So I just want to mention that. All right, so that's really all I wanted to cover right now. Here's my contact info, and I was going to open it up for questions. Stop share. So I don't know if there's any questions right now, Laura. I think you're muted. There you go.
Yes, I believe she is muted.
I think you're muted, Laura.
All right. Oh, sorry. Okay. I just unspotlighted you, Alex,
Okay.
so that we can go to the gallery view and see everybody, on the screen here. So when somebody has a question, I can spotlight them to
Okay.
bring them forward. So let's see. If you have a question, let's see, there is the chat box down below, and you can also raise your hand. There is a hand raising option as well. Okay, does everybody see that? The chat box at the bottom, just bring your mouse down and hover at the bottom and that pops up.
I see.
Let's see if there's any questions up front right away. And Keith and Peter, if you will keep your eye on things too. We do have one coming out. Let's see, in the chat. Hang on just a sec. Sorry. Let's see, Keith, can you pull up the chat?
I have.
Okay, is there a question in the chat?
Yes, there's one from Dan McGee to everyone. It says, if we pursued Kickstarter or Indiegogo, could we do that before a patent is filed or issued?
Okay.
The US, and I didn't mention this in the presentation, but the US does enable you to publicly disclose your invention and then file it within 1 year of that public disclosure. Almost all other industrialized countries have what's called an absolute novelty requirement, which means if you publicly disclose it, you can't file a patent on it. So if you are going to go on a Kickstarter or any of these public forums and disclose your invention, that's a terrible idea, because that means anybody then could go and try to file on it, and you'd have a really hard time proving that they derived that invention from your public disclosure if you filed later after you publicly disclosed it. So it just creates a huge mess, and it's not, I don't advise it. So if you're going to, if you think you have a good product, and obviously you do, if you're going to go on Kickstarter, spend a little bit of time and money and at least get a provisional filed before you publicly disclose it. Otherwise, it's just a can of worms.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, Keith, can you find the next one? Matt, is it Matt that has
Yeah,
a
Matt
question?
is just asking, how do I raise my hand?
I raised it. I figured out how. Am I
Okay,
You know
I'm
what?
trying
I spent some months I raised my hand. I forgot how to do it myself. Let's see.
I'm trying to find Matt in the list, and I don't see him on here. So let's see. There you are. There you are. Okay.
There he is.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the presentation. A lot of information there, and I'm sure that you barely covered the surface. I was curious that if somebody's going to follow the licensing route, you want to approach manufacturer distributors. Is it necessary to have a non-provisional patent in place before you do that?
It's not, no. I mean, you can actually license an idea even, or a product. It's I think Laura even did that with her product. But typically what people are doing now, if they are looking to license it, they'll at least file a provisional patent application.
Right.
Because it's just too easy for somebody else to go around you if you don't. And then go out and see if you can get some interest from a licensee. A lot of the times I work with clients to get them in a favorable position for licensing and for licensing to large companies who may want international protection. So a lot of those timeframes that I mentioned, especially when you file a PCT, that's going to maintain your rights to file internationally. And so if you have a great product and you think a large company that is an international type company would be interested in it, really the best situation to be in is to have a US issued patent, have the PCT filed, and have plenty of time left in that 30-month window before you have to make your decisions on what countries to file into, and then hand that over to a potential licensee. And that's like perfect, because you know you have a credible patent because you have one issued in the US, and you have the PCT filed, so they can still file it wherever else they want to file. And I also highly recommend, if you're doing licensing, after you get that first US patent, to file a continuation or continuation in part, so you have another one pending, because most licensees probably are going to want to have the ability to maybe make some changes or have a different claim scope or whatever it might be, with the patent application. So yeah, that's the best scenario that you can have if you're going to license to a big company.
So if you go down the licensing road, you can do so with the provisional under your belt,
Right.
and get out there. And then the PCT thing, is that for protection from international, or is that only for if you want to produce and sell internationally?
Well, PCT is really just a holding stamp, if you will, so that you can file internationally. Because you either have to file countries of interest within 1 year of your first filing, or file that PCT to then extend your time window to file internationally for another, for 30 months. So the normal window is 12 months, but when you do a PCT, and you can file a PCT as the first filing, and I do that for a lot of clients who definitely know they want some sort of international protection or have that ability. It's not a bad idea just to file a PCT right out of the gate. You get your opinion and your international search written opinion pretty quickly, much quicker than you do from the US when you file regular. And then you can proceed forward with a filing in the US with that PPH petition, get a patent issued quickly, and you still have tons of time left to try to license it. And you have a great kind of value proposition to a licensee, because you have an issued patent and you have rights to file internationally.
Thank you. Lots of information.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay, now we are, let's see, I'm trying to find Andy.
Hi.
There we go. I'm gonna spotlight you. Hang on just a sec if I can find your
Well,
spotlight.
I don't have my video on, so
Okay.
hi.
Okay, all right. Well, we will just hear you then, Andy.
Alex, hi. I just was invited by Dan and CJ to join. And I really appreciate what I've heard so far, and you're spot on. Absolutely. But my question relates to licensing. Is it most common that if you license a patent that can you license to a non-exclusive license to more than one individual, obviously?
Yes, I'm not a licensed expert by any stretch of imagination, but you can kind of create a licensing contract however you want to. I mean, you can do it by state, you can do it by, if your product kind of goes against different kind of market areas, then you can do it by the market they sell into. So you can slice and dice it however you like. I mean, it's kind of like, you got to think about it, again, like property. So you can invite people onto your property however you want. So you can invite all of them on there, or select few on there, or just one company to come in and they can own the property and you can just sell it outright.
So you really have a lot of options and a lot of potential benefit from different ways of licensing.
That's correct. Yeah, that's right. I mean,
that's great.
I think, a lot of companies are going to obviously want an exclusive license. And so an exclusive royalty-free license means you're just selling the rights to the patent. You're just selling the entire, the whole thing to them. But a lot of companies will want to do royalties because they're taking a risk as well about whether or not this invention is going to sell. And so they can offset some of their you know, I guess the money they're spending by giving you a royalty instead of just paying outright. So I don't know. It depends on the type of product it is, where you are in terms of you know, getting interest from the public on it. If you forward integrate further with your product, like if you go ahead and make the product and start selling it online, for example, and you're starting to have a lot of sales, that's certainly going to increase the licensing amount that you can demand. You know, if you just have a patent application, that's one thing, but you know, if you can say, hey, this thing's taken off and
Right.
manufactured, it works, people love it, that's, you're just going to be a lot better.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Looks like, Alex, we have a question from Scott Pinley, and let's see, Scott, you're unmuted, so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Alex, great presentation. I really liked how you used the property deed as an example. That made so much sense. That was so great.
Thanks.
So I just wanted to ask you, for most independent inventors that maybe want to limit how much funding, you know, they may want to spend on a product at the beginning to kind of help get started on licensing a product. Have you found that they write their own PPA, or is it actually a smarter practice to write your own PPA as much as you can, and then work with a patent agent like you to maybe do the work on the claims part and do the finalization of it? Is that what you usually see?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, it's always going to be better to have somebody who has a lot of experience with patents to review it and, you know, I guess make some edits. I mean, the PPAs are not really examined at all by the patent office. I mean, there's some kind of gross formality issues that if you don't do it correctly, you can get in trouble and it won't actually give you a filing receipt. But, and yeah, like I said in the presentation, if you're going to do it yourself, you know, really label everything, be consistent with your length. Yeah, be consistent with what you call things within the patent application. And you probably do want to write claims. The best way to ensure priority date to a claim in a provisional is to have a well-written claim. And there's no requirement to have a claim in a provisional, but when I write them for clients, I'll have, I don't know, as many claims as I can think of, because that is a statement that there will be no doubt later that you felt that was, you know, a statement of your invention at the time of filing the provisional. So yeah, if you want to, you know, get a really good disclosure together and then send it to somebody, you know, the fee wouldn't be that huge probably to review it and get it on file for you. Another thing too, I find out with many people is they'll file provisional and they didn't do something right with the filing, and they'll get a notice back from the patent office and they don't really know what to do with it. And then they don't respond in time and it actually never officially got filed. So that's not good. So, yeah, so, yeah, I would say, yeah, you can do it yourself. But again, my nuclear bomb thing, I definitely do not recommend people try to file their own non-provisional. You know, it's a whole different ball of wax.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And any other questions before I start asking a few myself? Let's see, Matt, you have another question here, so if you'll unmute. Okay, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. Since nobody else's hand was up, I thought while I look forward to being a individual inventor someday too. I'm currently studying mechanical engineering. And I was looking at different career options with that, and one of them was patent agent. You have to have a background in science or engineering. And I was curious if you could offer any advice on how somebody gets qualified enough to be a patent agent.
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, and I think I may have a slide on that, but yeah, a patent agent has to have a technical degree, so an engineering or science degree. And then you have to take the patent bar. So it's the same exam that patent attorneys have to take to, you know, be a patent attorney. And then you can represent clients before the patent office, and you do everything to get patents issued to your clients. You just cannot you can't represent people in court. You can't assert your patents against people or against other, you know, infringers. And the thing is, a lot of people don't understand this, like the people that, or the person you hire to write your patent, if you go to a law firm and you have a patent written by the law firm, the people that are preparing and filing your patent for you are totally different than the people at the law firm who are going to go after infringers. So it's a total different kind of set of people. Yeah, so litigation attorneys in the patent law industry are different than what we call preparation and prosecution attorneys, which are ones that prepare and prosecute your patents to get them issued. So yeah, you can work with a patent agent, get a well-written patent, get it issued, and then 5 years down the road, somebody infringes, go hire the law firm with the litigation attorneys to go after the infringers. So that's so all you have to do after you get your engineering degree is take the patent bar. It's a long test.
That's it. You're a patent agent.
7.5 hour test. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You have to know a lot of the rules, but I've been doing this a long time, and there's a lot of rules.
Thank you.
Yeah, you'll learn more when you start doing a lot of it.
Thank you, Matt, for your question. Abdulrahman, let's see, let me ask you to unmute. There you go. And you can go ahead with your question to Alex.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice presentation. I really enjoyed it and learned a lot. I was working overseas at the university, and I co-own 5 patents, but the applicants were the university. So I have 25, according to the law there, we have 25% ownership of the patent. And I left the university, and there's no way to, to find out whether these patents have been licensed or so. So what's the procedure of keeping my right? Do I need to get, some kind of, what can I do to be sure that if they start getting something from those patents, how can I ensure that our rights will be there?
Excuse me, let me make sure I understand your question. So you were an inventor on a number of patents
Right, 5
in a foreign
patents.
country.
Right, 5
And
patents. Yeah.
5 patents.
Yep.
Yeah.
Overseas.
Yeah. Right.
University.
Okay.
There, and I'm a co-inventor.
Okay.
And according to the contract between us and the university, we own 25% of anything which comes from the patent.
Oh, I see.
And I left that university. I'm no longer there. So what do you advise? How can I, just keep my right in case these patents start to bear fruits?
Well, I would contact that university and see if what kind of, there may be something in your agreement with them where you said that you get 5% of,
25%.
right. So there's got to be some way for you to check on that. And that probably is in the contract that you sign. Maybe annually you're allowed to inquire and have them send you some sort of statement about that. So I would start off that way. That's a really tough question to answer because I'm not really sure what all the rules would be in that foreign country and that sort of thing. But if you have a contract that says you get 5%, there should be other stipulations in that contract as to how to review that when at your inquiry on that. So I don't know what it says in that contract, but I would review the contract and then contact the university about it.
What it says is when you get the project, and if the project results in a patent, then you own 25%. That's what the statement.
5%.
Of the 25%, and then after that, there is no other details about how that's going to happen.
That's
in other cases, if you live in the country and you continue, you may be able to know about what's going on. But when you live in a foreign country,
owning 5%, I don't know how that.
No, it's 25, not 5. 25.
25. Oh, well, owning 25%. I'm not sure how that relates to any sort of royalty amount. I mean, if that's all the contract says, that's kind of tough. I don't know how that would turn into any sort of royalty payment with that really vague language.
To consult maybe a lawyer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Maybe-
Alex, I was just gonna say that having, it sounds like this gentleman really needs to consult with an attorney
Yeah, it
and,
sounds like,
and have all of his agreements with him when he goes to see him. Because you could be risking a lot if you try and do it yourself.
that's true.
Another question, if I may have a follow-up, a very short question. I teach capstone courses for our students in the mechanical engineering department at ASU. And sometimes the work of capstone results in really good work. So what is your advice about how students can keep their IPs?
Students, it is?
Mhm.
Well, I don't know what the rules are in that particular university, but in a lot of the US universities, the research professors and I think even grad students, there's some sort of agreement that's signed that the university gets rights to any inventions that come out of the university sponsored research. So first I'd just want to, probably suggest that you review any of those kind of contracts. And again, you might want to get an attorney to look at those because the wording can be very complicated in those sort of contractual agreements with the university.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Let's, are we good with that? Okay, let's move on. And you know what, Alex, as I go through the list of the attendees here tonight, I know quite a few of them are fairly experienced and knowledgeable and also asking you, some very specific questions, but there's also some people on here that are starting at the very, very, very beginning. Okay, so one of the questions that I wanted to ask you that perhaps they haven't asked is, when you start, you're doing a patent search, you're just trying to find out what's out there. Do I have a unique idea or don't I? Where can they go to start their own search before they come to like you to do a professional level search? Where are they?
That's a great question because a lot of people, and even in our meetings we used to have in person, and people would come with an idea and they may have spent months kind of making prototype and more than that even, and they had not even done a preliminary internet search on it. And so sometimes we would, as a group, do some searching and see what we could find. And sometimes we would find it on just Google searching or on Amazon. So you can search with Google, you can search on Amazon. That's a great place to look for, products that might be similar. You can also do your own patent searching. Using the USPTO isn't really all that user friendly, I don't think. There's a website called Free Patents Online that you can just type in some keywords to do some initial searching. But before you go too far or you spend too much time and money investing in a product, you should hire somebody who is a professional searcher to conduct a thorough search, because most people in the public aren't going to know all the tricks and know how to fully search the all the different classes, subclasses to find what might be relevant art. So it's again, it's if you're investing a lot of time and money, a patent per art search isn't that expensive, and so you should probably have one done kind of early on.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Alex, also, a lot of people, when they file, they get their first office action. What is an office action? Yeah,
an office action is when you file a patent with the patent office. It's some action from the USPTO. And so it can be a restriction, which is where they're saying, oh, well, looks like you have multiple types of claims in your patent application, and you're gonna have to pick one that you want us to review. It could be a non-final rejection. I mean, most patents are rejected initially. The patent office has I wouldn't say an incentive system for examiners to reject patents, but my understanding is that the examiners, one of the metrics of their performance is number of actions that they handle. And so, if you can, write up a rejection, that, if you can find something that's objectionable or, some prior art that you can cite and give a rejection, then they're going to get, that's going to be one action that they are under their belt for that month. And so, yeah, that's, again, most patents are rejected, even really well-written ones, a lot of times are going to be rejected. I've had lots of them go through on the first action as an allowance, but any sort of actionable matter from the patent office is an office action, and there are time limits to respond. So, for example, the restriction, you get 2 months to respond without extension fees. And like a non-final rejection, you get 3 months to respond without extension fees. And almost all actions, you have a total of up to 6 months to respond, or your patent goes abandoned. So you have to keep track of all that, and you have to make sure you respond back in a timely manner so that you're not being charged fees or the patent doesn't go abandoned.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, another question that's I'm asked a lot too, and it's kind of just a general question. It used to be in past years, it would take maybe 3 years before you'd even hear from the patent office. What's the average time nowadays that it takes to hear back?
Well, they're trying to get down to a year, or a little less than a year, but that really isn't happening yet. It typically is going to be a little over a year to 2 years, and I occasionally have applications that are more than 2 years. And I call them, bug them, and you can be a squeaky wheel, and you can talk to the the patent office and see if you get the patent docketed and kind of pushed up the list. But some art units are really just way behind, and it depends on the type of product and that it gets classified into. But yeah, it can take a long time. Again, that track 1 examination request, that's a surefire way to get it looked at quicker. Now there's also too, if any one of the inventors is over the age of 65, you get what's called free accelerated examination.
Oh,
yeah,
that's good to know.
Yeah, and that's you have to file a petition to accelerate based on age, but that's I do have a number of clients that qualify for that, and so that way it gets looked at quicker.
Okay. And just one last question here too, is there anybody else? See, Keith and Peter, you keep checking the chat box as well as hands for me, but with a lot of things going on right now about our, the strength of our patent system and everything, people are asking a lot, is it worth it, to get a patent?
Well, it's worth it to get a well-written patent. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, when you file a lot of patents, you see how the patent office changes I can almost tell you when a memo went out to all the examiners, and I can see a change in how they examine the patent applications. And even in light of all of the stuff with the PTAB, the examiners are really being much more critical about indefinite language. So some of the patents that were being thrown out by the PTAB were because they would use words like substantially in the claim. And so if you say substantially in the claim, and that you don't really explain what substantially means in the claim or in the body of the patent, who the heck knows what that means? And so like Josh Malone's, one of his initial patents was thrown out because the claim language said substantially full, and then it falls off the straw, and Josh Malone is a bunch of balloons, right? So, that patent was not, all that well written, because, patent agents and attorneys who know what they're doing realize that that's indefinite language. But a lot of times that stuff would slip through because the examiners at the patent office aren't that experienced. And so they didn't call it out. But I've seen in the last year, maybe year and a half, that, if you have anything that looks indefinite, like horizontally, they're like, what is horizontally? I'm like, come on, it's horizontal. So, they're looking for anything that might be questionable in terms of definite language because of that.
Yeah.
I guess to get back to your question, yeah, it's definitely worth it because, but you want to make sure it's well written and it's going to hold up and not be thrown out for some silly reason.
Right. I think your point's well taken, because nowadays, you have to look at it from a different angle too, because, since infringers have caught on to this, they'll be looking for those vague terms.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you're helping somebody, write a patent, you have that in mind,
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I was on a call with one of my clients one time, and infringement kind of initial discussion with, a company that he thought was infringing, and they were trying to find indefinite language, but it was defined. But you're right. They definitely are looking for that.
They are.
Well, we don't know what that means. And they know that can be a reason to get it thrown out on PTAB.
Yeah, so everybody has to be so much more strategic and aware nowadays than you were 10, 15 years ago.
That's right.
And, that's good and that's bad, doggone it. It just means there's a weakness in the system we need to fix, but we all have to be aware of that so that you can keep yourself afloat while everyone's trying to work on improving the system.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we all have the same common goal,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see.
And
We've got a couple of other hands up. I'm sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I'll take some. That's good.
Oh, okay. Let's see. We've got Keith. You want to go ahead and unmute?
Yeah, I've got a couple of quickies. So Alex, let's say that you already have a patent and you notice that there's language in there that's sort of fuzzy. I forgot the word you actually used there. What can you do about it?
Indefinite. Well, if it's within 2 years of issue, you can file a reissue application and try to clean it up. But if it's past that date, there's not a whole lot you can do. If you patent pending still, and I know whenever a client of mine has a patent that's going to move to issue, I kind of encourage them to file a continuation, or it depends on where they are in their and what they're trying to do with the product. But having a patent still pending gives you that ability to go in and maybe clean up a claim or have a claim with a different scope to maybe read more directly on an infringer. And, if you have a great product, I have clients but they'll file patents and then they'll have continuation going on and on and on, almost for the full life of the patent, because they always want to have the ability to make a little modification if need be to stronger patent or stronger claim, I should say, really.
Okay, thanks. And then the second question is, and I'm not kind of asking this for the group, just so they have a feel for it, about how many patent, non-provisional patent applications are filed a year, and about how many non-provisional patents are issued in a year, so we get kind of an idea of that.
You broke up there a little bit. I'm not sure I follow what you said there, but you said non-provisionals are filed within a year And,
Ah.
and what now?
Yeah, how many are filed and how many versus how many are approved?
With the whole patent office or for my business
Just say, no, not you, just for the,
in general? I
yeah,
don't,
for the entire country or for the USPTO in general. Is it? I heard it was like 250,000 filed and about half
I don't,
approved.
it's usually about half are approved, right? So that, you know, it'll go from 45% to 55, maybe 6%, I don't know, but it's usually right around 50% is the allowance. And that's a good point. I mean, you should always ask if you're looking to hire somebody to be your patent attorney or agent, you are allowed to ask them what their allowance rate is. And that's the percentage of patents that get issued from the ones that they file and prosecute. And I think when you get your patent registration, you basically, it says something on there that you have to provide that information to your clients. And you know, my allowance rate's over 80%, which is high, much higher than the average. But that's because, you know, I don't like to file bogus patents. I mean, there's a lot of sometimes with clients, you know, we'll do a search and I'll find some prior art that's pretty close and people are disappointed, but you know, I always tell them, well, there's plenty of people to tell you that you can get a patent on that, you know, because there's a lot of scammers in this industry, and they'll do a search and they'll send you 2 patents or 3 patents and say, yeah, you can get a patent on this, and they just want to take your money. And so their allowance rate, if you were to look them up for some of these companies I don't want to mention, but it's probably like 20%. It's got to be terrible because they're filing patents that they have no business filing.
Yeah, no, I wasn't inquiring on a personal level. I was kind of inquiring if, you know, the USPTO,
Overall.
how busy is USPTO? How many patents, how many non-provisional applications they get versus how many patents are actually issued? Is it?
Yeah, I really, I don't know that.
Okay.
I need to look,
Keith,
but it's a lot. Yeah, for sure. That's why they're so busy.
Yeah.
That's why it
Keith,
takes.
I just put a link in the chat
Oh,
to the USPTO's application data dashboard. You can play with that data and you'll probably find that information there.
Beautiful.
They include their application backlog as well as the average time to first office action and time dependency.
yeah, do you have any idea, Peter, how many applications they get a year? Do you know off the top of your head? Is it 100,000?
You'll have to click the link and use the dashboard.
Okay, thanks.
That's awesome information. Thank you, Peter. That we can go to that.
Yeah, thanks, Peter.
Let's move on here quickly. Anthony, you have a question, so let's get you unmuted and you can go forward with your question. See, we can't hear you yet, Anthony. You're still muted.
All right, can you hear me now? All right. First of all, I want to thank you because I haven't even heard half of the stuff you mentioned, and I did a lot of research. And the way you presented it all together in a formatted, I've never heard nothing like that. Phenomenal. You kind of drew some concerns to have me ask a question. You're talking about when you have multi-claims that it can get rejected on that. I've got 12 claims. There's like a part of it that I can't do on my own, and I need to have a company help me. I need to hire somebody to help me work out some of the little details that I can't finish on my own, but I have the majority of it finished. It's several tools that work together in unison, or they can be separate to take, you know, if you don't need the whole thing. I'm going to start out with one complete and then be able to, but it has a capability to be separate individual ones. So I've done a lot of research. There's stuff out there, but they don't work the way this does. The methods are different. So am I going to have a problem with if it's several like separate tools, not really tools, but I can't get into it without releasing what I have. Do you do free consultations? Can I talk with you on this, or how much is your consultation or whatever? Because I'm really stuck. I really need some help. I really need some help. I can't.
Sure, yeah. No, yeah, I do free consultations.
Okay, because I'm really stuck and I'm really frustrated. I just all right, I'll
Okay.
catch up.
Yeah.
I'll catch up with you then,
Just
because
It's
it's
yeah,
hard
give me
to
a call.
explain.
We can get through it. No
It's
problem.
it's hard to explain without releasing information.
And Anthony, thank you very much for recognizing this is an open forum. And if you release too much, it's kind of like you're releasing it to the public. So yeah, you really do need to contact Alex and go through that with him. And you have his contact information. And just so everybody knows too, whenever we have our meetings in person in the past before COVID, and hopefully after all this COVID stuff is gone, we'll be meeting in person again. And Alex usually contacts me. It's generally like once a quarter or so. And he says, I'm going to be in town early and I'll do free consultations before our meeting starts. So whenever, you get our flyers and Alex is offering, those consultations are so valuable, especially face-to-face, that if you see that, I'm just kind of telling everybody, if you see that, jump on it immediately, because they go fast.
I used to, but I work and I can't do it. I'm
Sure.
able to jump in like this, but
I'll be happy to
I enjoyed it.
by phone or Zoom,
Yeah.
get back together.
Awesome. Okay, great. And we
Thank you.
have, okay, Anthony, are you good? You good to go? Okay. All righty. Jamie, you have a question? You want to unmute yourself? Thank you.
Hi, Alex. It was a great presentation.
Hey, Jamie,
Thanks.
thanks.
Has there been a change in the role of diagrams in the patent in the past few years, or is that still pretty much the same? Like what?
I'm sorry, you cut out there.
I'll say it again slowly, and hopefully it will come through. Has there been a change or migration
Right.
in the role of diagrams in the patent application to support the claims?
I think you asked, is there figures?
Now you're cutting out.
Yeah, Alex, you're freezing up a little bit.
Am I? Uh-oh.
Yeah. So Jamie is.
Let me do this. Hold on. Okay, is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay,
Jamie,
yeah.
why don't you go ahead and ask your
Free-
question again?
So has there been a change or migration in the role of diagrams or other media used to support your application in the past few years? Or is it still pretty much the same as it has been for many years prior?
Not really. Figures or diagrams,
Mhm.
and all those rules are pretty much the same. You can in some cases you can have color figures, or you can have pictures when a drawing is not sufficient to show the detail. But yeah, for the most part, not changed a whole lot with respect to that.
What takes precedent, text or diagram?
I wouldn't know. I'm not sure what you mean by precedent, but in the patent applications that I prepare, I like to have figures with lots of the elements of the invention labeled. And so I'll have a figure with, 10, 20 reference lines pointing to every part of that invention I can think of, so that it's really clear, that I'm describing or I'm pointing to those features, and it's in the text as well.
Lastly, that's typical for many applications. I think that's great. In the past presentation that you have given, you mentioned a way of using photographs and then tracing over the tops of the edges observable in the photos as a method to generate diagrams, or at least to start. Do you still use that approach, or is there a better way now?
Now, however you want to prepare your line drawings, yeah, I mean, the requirements for the type of drawings that you submit has not changed. And I typically either get drawings from the client, or I'll prepare them. And sometimes if they send me pictures of the prototypes, I can trace them to create line drawings. But yeah, I haven't really changed my practice with respect to that in the last few years. It's still the same.
Okay, is that something that we can do?
Yeah, I mean, you guys, if you want, the thing is, you can prepare your own figures. And like I said, a lot of times I'll get drawings from clients, but the labeling of the product is part of my patent application process. So I certainly would not want the client to try to label them and, do all that, because it's too integral to the whole strategic process of preparing the patent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, we're coming up on 8:40 here, so are there any other questions? Oh, okay, Kermit, looks like you have a question. You want to unmute? There you go.
I've muted. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Alex, concerning what you said about PCT, does that mean you don't have to file a provisional with the USPTO, but instead you could file your provisional with the PCT, and then you would have 30 months in order to file your non-provisional with the USPTO? Is that right?
Well, that's correct, except it's not called a provisional PCT. There's no provisional PCT, but you can kind of think of it as a provisional, because you can file a PCT as your first application. And then you have 30 months from that filing date to file in the US and also in other countries.
Okay. Then I had one other question. The question I asked you, emailed you yesterday about putting identification on the product to
Right.
stop infringers. And I read what you said, but the language was a little tough.
Right.
All I'm asking is, instead of putting the actual patent number on the product to stop an infringer, can you just put on there patents at, and then tell my website? Because the patents are listed at my website.
That's right. There's two options. There's the listing. You can say patent number and put the number on there, or you can say patented and then put a website /patent, which would be the page that you keep updated with all the patent numbers that relate to a particular product. So on that /patent page, you can say, product XYZ, here's the patents, product, ZYX, then the patents that are related to it. So, companies that sell products that aren't conducive for printing or putting patent numbers on the product, they'll, on the packaging or whatever, they'll put this patented and put the website, and then they'll have a big list of patents.
Okay, I've got the patent on every single page at the website. So are you saying just put on the product patented dash and then put your website?
Well, yeah, most times people will put patented, then the website, and they'll have a particular page. There'll be /patents, which is the page on your website.
Right, but I don't need to do that because it's on every single page.
Well, then you're fine then. As long as when that link takes you to a website that has your patents listed on there, that's what matters.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you're muted.
You sorry. I muted myself. Thanks, Keith. As I say, I'm not a professional presenter here. I think it's time for us to, wrap tonight. Thank you all for the questions. And for those of you that are members, I just want to remind you our next meeting is in 2 weeks on the 20th. So we'll see you then. If anybody does have any interest in finding out more about our organization, just go to our website at azinventors.org. And before we conclude tonight, I want to come back to Alex and just thank you very much for taking your time tonight, Alex. It was just incredible. And every time, I've known you, 9 years now, 9 or 10 years, every
Right.
time I see you, I learn something new. And I think everybody else feels that way too. So we're very honored that you joined us tonight. And just so everybody knows, Alex is joining us from the East Coast. So he's up
That's right.
pretty late tonight. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you all very much. And we'll close for tonight. And hey, let's unmute and give
Thank
him a
you.
round of applause.
Great meeting.
Thank you,
Thank-
Alex. All right,
thank
good
you.
night, everybody.
All right.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you, Alex.